Hey guys, and welcome back to another ICT for Beginners video. In today's video I will be covering the silver bullet setup. It's a very simple setup, it's not as complicated. Many YouTubers do get it wrong and they mix it up with the 2022 YouTube reversal setup. But first of all, the silver bullet setup is a continuation setup. From a pre-existing trend, we look for a continuation entry into a draw on liquidity. And that's really the core of the silver bullet setup, because our first check on this checklist right here is to identify the draw on liquidity, the high probability draw on liquidity. This could be the previous day's high, it could be the previous day's low if we're bearish, could be equal high buy side, equal low sell side, the previous week, previous month, high low. But in my opinion, that most important part about it is that you have to have that gut feeling that we're really going to take this previous day's high buy side. For example, we already move up, we started to consolidate. That's always what I like to see for a silver bullet setup. I will show you another chart example in the end of the video, but we push up, we make that first push up higher outside of this consolidation, and right here we have that previous day's high. And you have to have that high conviction that we're going to reach into this pool of buy side liquidity. And then we already get to our second step, which would be to identify a discount that price could use to deliver into the draw on liquidity. We could use a fair value gap here, maybe even a inversion fair value gap, or simply a volume imbalance. If price is really bullish, sometimes all it uses is a volume imbalance, and I will also show you an example for that in the end of the video. And like right here, we leave behind a bullish fair value gap, we use a long position and we place our entry right inside of this bullish fair value gap. Right here we place our stop loss, let's say 5 handles, and all we're looking forward to target is a minimum of 5 handles into our previous day's high buy side. Alright guys, now that you already know the core concept of the silver bullet continuation setup, let's talk about some good extra confluences like we did in our first video. So, of course, the next best extra confluence would be time. Are we inside a kill zone? Or maybe, I really like to pair the silver bullet setup with a macro. Are we inside a macro? Could we maybe be, let me use a vertical trend line, right inside of the 9:50 to 11:10 a.m. macro? If we are, we have even more confluence that the algo could use this discount to deliver price into our targeted liquidity pool. The second best confluence after time, of course, is what happened before. I always ask myself that question if I'm looking forward to take a continuation silver bullet setup into a high probability pool of buy side or sell side liquidity. We could, for example, have a YouTube model right here where we already took out a higher time frame point of interest. We shift market structure, we get our reversal setup at the bottom, and we continue with the trend. Then we halt for a second and start to consolidate, and we get our confirmation that we are very likely going to continue to that buy side pool. So yeah, all we do is we fulfill the higher time frame draw on liquidity. We have our reversal setup, for example, at the low of the day. We continue with that trend, consolidate, keep on continuing, and use the discount continuation setup to reach this buy side liquidity pool. So now you know the ins and out of the silver bullet continuation setup. Now it's time for me to show you a few real chart examples of how we can use this concept and apply it to real price action. The first chart example that I prepared today, you might remember it from the first video of the new ICT for Beginners series, where we used this example on the 23rd of August for the YouTube 22 reversal model. And like I said earlier, a good extra confluence is what happened before. We had a YouTube reversal model from the low of the day. We cleared that sell side. We continued with a trend, cleared the London buy side, consolidated for a little while, and then we continued further to the upside. And note that right here to the left, we have a previous day's high, that's Tuesday's high, with equal highs as a buy-side liquidity pool to target. We have our reversal setup at the bottom. We continue with that reversal trend, consolidate right after taking out that London session high from Wednesday. And then after that consolidation, right at 10:40 a.m. New York local time, we continue to the upside. Remember, we know that we have a very high probability draw on liquidity with equal highs paired with the previous day's high. Very simple. And what do we leave behind? A bullish fair value gap right here and another bullish fair value gap right here. And now also note the timing. It's 10:50 a.m. We're inside the 10:50 to 11:10 a.m. macro. My favorite macro, because that's usually when I stop trading on my live streams. And this was a very, very easy trade for 5 handles. I remember I took that one, placed my entry right here, and all I was looking for was this quick ends model 5 handle target. We reached into that previous day equal high buy side liquidity pool. Of course I could have targeted more, and as you can see, it played out perfectly. We could have even went for 10 handles, but certainly I would have taken partials right here on that liquidity pool. Previous day's high paired with equal highs. That's a perfect example. We delivered into that right after the macro. So by 11:20, 10 minutes after the end of the 10:50 to 11:10 macro, we have delivered into this pool using that highest discount. And I entered right here at 4435 to get exactly 5 handles out of this trade, which is my daily target for each of the funded accounts. The second example that I prepared is the price action on Friday, the 1st of September. That was the last trading day. Now it's the weekend, and on Monday we have a bank holiday. But also a perfect setup. First question, what happened before? We filled with the NFP news. We went into a weekly bearish fair value gap right here. We took out weekly, daily buy side. We cleared the previous day's high, and we started to consolidate. Right here we had a very simple YouTube model. We shifted market structure, left behind a fair value gap, filled that fair value gap paired with the inversion to deliver into sell side. So that's the 2022 model, and I really wanted to make that difference between the 2022 model and the silverbullet setup as clear as I could. And if we look at it, right here we have the London session low right here at 4513.5, and we have our previous day's low right here at 4512. Alright, so the 2022 model already delivered into sell side. That would have been my first target. That's already 16 handles on ES here. But the question now is, how could we get into that previous day's low sell side and the London session sell side right here? This is a very strong draw on liquidity. We will fulfill this pattern and clear that previous day's low. In my opinion, this is a 90-10 opportunity where the odds are really in your favor. We clear that sell side, and once we clear that sell side, we consolidate a little bit right here around that New York midnight level. And let's see now, right here, we leave behind a little bearish fair value gap that we can use. That's the discount. So we have our target, we have our higher time frame, draw on liquidity, high probability, draw on liquidity. We identify a discount that we can enter on this time frame. We mark it out, we place our limit order, we set our stop loss 1 tick above the high of that candle that created the fair value gap. However you like to place your stop loss, you could even give it a little bit more room to also cover this discount, but I'm always looking for that most recent discount because that's the one that's most of the time delivering into the high probability draw on liquidity. And once you identified that, you look for the discount, you enter, and you take your profit. It's really that simple. We fill it by 1 tick and immediately reject, close below the midnight level, continue go lower, and just before we clear this previous day's low sell side, right here, look what we leave behind. A bearish volume imbalance. which essentially delivered. We filled it in with this little wick. We retested the closing price of this candle to deliver into that sell side. And this, my friends, was a 10 handle silver bullet setup. So now we are at the end of the video. I hope you really enjoyed watching it and you have learned something new about the silver bullet setup. And now, in my opinion, you have two very powerful tools. You have the YouTube reversal model, and now you also have that silver bullet continuation setup. And other than a reversal and continuation setup, you do not really need much more. Now all you have to do is pair it with higher time frame Confluence, identify high probability drawn liquidities, and join us on Discord, because there I'm sharing my daily ES analysis. I'm also doing daily live streams, so make sure to join that. The link for that is in the description box below.